They told me I had no legal right to set foot on that land. First came the attorneys, then came the official paperwork. After that, surveyors arrived at my gate, ordering me to leave before things got worse. But there was one thing they never expected. I had already done the research, and hidden inside a property deed that was more than 50 years old was something that was about to bring their entire plan crashing down. My name is Garrett Calloway, and I'm not someone who spends his time looking for conflict. I'm a retired contractor. My life has always been about repairing things, building things, and staying busy. Give me open fields, peaceful mornings, and a project to work on, and I'm happy. That's exactly why, when I found an abandoned 12-acre ranch just outside Pinehurst County, I believed I'd finally discovered the perfect place to spend my retirement. The property had been deserted for almost 9 years. The fences were falling apart. The old barn had partially collapsed. The livestock trough had long since dried out, and the farmhouse carried the smell of dust, age, and decades of neglect. But underneath all of that, the foundation was still strong. The land itself was even better. The asking price was just $62,000 for the entire 12 acres. In today's market, that wasn't simply a bargain. It felt like a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I handled everything exactly the way you're supposed to. I hired a professional title company. I reviewed the property's ownership history. I paid for a complete boundary survey. Every document confirmed the same thing. The ranch sat completely outside the jurisdiction of the Pinehurst HOA. It wasn't next door to the community. It didn't even share a border with it. There was nearly a quarter-mile of distance between us, separated by a county-maintained road. Everything was clean. Everything was properly documented. On a Thursday afternoon in March, I signed the closing papers and officially became the lawful owner of that land. Remember that detail because it's important. My property was entirely outside the HOA's authority. Keep that fact in the back of your mind, because what happened afterward will make you question just how far some homeowners associations are willing to go when they think nobody will challenge them. For the first 3 weeks, life was exactly what I had hoped for. I camped on the property twice, cleared away years of fallen debris, and started sketching plans for a modest workshop alongside a small guest cabin. I wasn't bothering a single person. Most days, nobody could even see me. I was simply a man working quietly on land that legally belonged to him. Then the letter showed up. It arrived in a thick cream-colored envelope with an embossed heading across the top that read, Pinehurst Estates Homeowners Association Community Standards Division. According to the letter, my property supposedly fell inside something called an Extended Jurisdiction Overlay that had been established in 2019. It claimed I was already violating HOA regulations by constructing unauthorized improvements, using the land without approval, and failing to register myself as a property owner within their association. I read the letter once. Then I read it again. Then I read it a third time, because nothing in it made any sense. The property they described wasn't mine. The authority they claimed simply didn't exist. The next morning, I called the HOA management office. The woman who answered sounded friendly enough, but she never wavered. She insisted the overlay had been approved by the county years earlier, giving the HOA authority over every undeveloped parcel within a 1-mile radius. She told me I had 30 days to comply, or I'd be facing fines along with possible legal action. I asked a simple question. Could you send me the county records showing that the overlay was officially approved? She told me she'd check on it. She never called me back. 2 weeks later, a certified envelope arrived from a law firm. This wasn't another warning letter. It was a direct legal demand ordering me to stop all work on my property immediately, pay a $4,000 HOA registration fee, and allow an HOA inspection within 15 business days. If I refused, they warned they would place a lien against my property. A lien against land they had absolutely no legal authority over. Let me stop for a second because this is the part that still sticks with me. What would most people do? Most homeowners would panic. They'd call the HOA hoping to negotiate. Some would hire an attorney immediately. Others might simply pay the fee to avoid a long legal fight. That's exactly what organizations like this expect. It's the strategy they rely on. But I've spent my entire career working with county inspectors, zoning departments, permit offices, and government agencies. When something doesn't make sense, I don't panic. I start digging. And once I started digging, everything changed. I requested the original county meeting records from 2019, the same meeting where the so-called extended jurisdiction overlay had supposedly been approved. It took 4 hours, 2 separate trips to the county records office, and more paperwork than I care to fill out. But eventually I found the documents, and that's when the first major twist revealed itself. The overlay had never actually been adopted. The HOA had submitted the proposal to the county, but officials had tabled it until after a required public comment period. That public comment period was never completed. That so-called overlay existed only on official HOA stationery, and nowhere else. It carried no legal authority. It had never been recorded with the county. In plain English, it was completely made up, yet for 6 straight years, they had been using that fictional document to intimidate property owners into paying registration fees. 6 years. I couldn't stop wondering how many people had simply written a $4,000 check without ever asking whether the HOA actually had the power they claimed. But I wasn't finished investigating. When I went back to my own title paperwork and followed the complete chain of ownership all the way back to the 1970s, I uncovered something even more significant. This was plot twist number 2. Hidden inside the original 1974 deed was a restrictive covenant written by the property's original owner, a rancher named Earl Dubose. The language couldn't have been clearer. It specifically stated that this parcel of land could never be incorporated into, annexed by, or placed under the authority of any homeowners association in perpetuity. That single word, perpetuity, carries tremendous legal weight. It doesn't have an expiration date. It can't be erased because an HOA board decides to pass a vote decades later. It remains attached to the property forever. The HOA hadn't merely invented authority over my land. They had attempted to seize control of property that had been permanently and irrevocably protected against exactly that kind of action since 1974. That same afternoon, I contacted an experienced real estate attorney. I sent her every piece of evidence I had collected, the complete title history, the original 1974 covenant, the county meeting minutes, the proposed overlay that had never been approved, and every threatening letter the HOA's law firm had mailed to me. She called less than 24 hours later and said something I'll never forget. "Garrett," she told me, "they just handed you the perfect weapon." From there, everything moved quickly. We filed a formal complaint with the county attorney's office, accusing the HOA of fraudulently misrepresenting its regulatory authority. We mailed a certified legal response to the HOA's attorneys that included copies of the restrictive covenant, along with a demand that every attempt to contact me stop immediately. Then we filed a civil lawsuit against the HOA for harassment, unlawful threats to place a lien on my property, and abuse of legal process. Within 1 week, the HOA's attorney stopped communicating altogether. 2 weeks later, the management company responsible for operating Pinehurst Estates terminated its contract and walked away. Then came the biggest development of all. The county launched a formal investigation into how many property owners had been pressured into paying that $4,000 registration fee under authority that had never legally existed. The last update I received was that 11 different landowners had paid those fees over the years. Every one of them became eligible to receive a full refund, plus accumulated interest. As I tell this story, I'm sitting on my front porch looking across all 12 acres that are completely, legally, and permanently mine. The workshop has already been framed. The foundation for the guest cabin has been poured. And ever since the day we filed those legal papers, not one representative from the HOA has stepped onto my property again. They came after me armed with lawyers, official letterhead, and empty threats. I answered with a 50-year-old deed and the truth buried inside county records. Sometimes the most valuable thing a person owns isn't a house, a piece of land, or a bank account. Sometimes it's the paperwork that proves you're right. Now I'd like to hear from you. Leave a comment below and tell me which country you're watching from. And if you ever dealt with a neighbor, landlord, or homeowners association trying to claim rights they never actually had, share your experience. I genuinely enjoy reading every story you leave. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe, because around here, the HOA doesn't get the last word. This story is a fictional narrative created solely for entertainment purposes. All names, characters, organizations, and events portrayed in this story are entirely fictional.